Before smartphones, before email, before Google, we still lived full lives. This isn't about fantasy versions of the past. This is what life actually felt like in everyday America from the 1950s to the 1970s. Not perfect, not simple, just real. These 20 moments reflect how we lived, connected, worked, and got by. No filters, no nostalgia goggles. 1. Making plans without instant messaging. You'd agree on a time and place and then show up. No texts, no last-minute changes. You trusted each other to follow through. If someone was late, you waited. No one was glued to a phone because there were none. You learned patience, commitment, and how to read people face to face. It sounds small now, but back then it built real responsibility, especially among teens figuring out friendship and first dates. 2. How we found people without Google Maps. If you were headed to Aunt Betty's, you wrote directions on a scrap of paper. Turn right at the red gas station, left after the feed store. If you got lost, you asked at a diner. People helped, not because they had to, but because it was normal. Some of the best conversations started that way. Navigation wasn't perfect, but it built community, not isolation. 3. Calling someone from a rotary phone. Phones were heavy, mounted, and had cords. You waited for the dial to spin back every time. You couldn't multitask. You sat and talked. You remembered numbers. You didn't screen calls. Someone answered, you spoke. If they didn't, you called back later. And when the phone rang during dinner, sometimes you just let it ring, because family time came first. 4. Saturday morning cartoons meant everything. You waited all week for Saturday morning. Not because there were 100 shows, but because there were just a few and they mattered. You sat with a bowl of cereal and your siblings laughing at Bugs Bunny, cheering for Popeye. If you missed it, that was it. No DVR, no replays. That scarcity made it special. And somehow, it stuck in your memory better than anything you can stream today. 5. Neighborhoods with open doors, mostly. Yes, in many towns people left their doors unlocked. Not everywhere, not always, but often enough. You could borrow sugar without texting. You'd walk in and call out, "Mrs. Turner?" Everyone had a front porch and a kitchen table ready for guests. It wasn't Mayberry, but there was trust. And when that trust got broken, it mattered. It changed how people saw the world. 6. Paying bills in person or by mail. No autopay. No apps. You opened the envelope, wrote a check, licked a stamp. You felt your money leave. It made you budget more carefully. You knew when rent was due because you mailed it. And if you were late, you owned it. Nobody blamed the bank's app. There was accountability, and strangely, peace in the routine of doing it by hand. 7. Waiting weeks for photos to be developed. You took 12, maybe 24 shots. You hoped at least a few turned out. Then you waited days, sometimes weeks, for the drugstore to process them. Opening that envelope was exciting and disappointing all at once. Some shots were blurry. Some captured magic. But you kept them, not on a cloud, but in an album you could hold. That meant something. 8. Writing letters that actually meant something. Letters took time. You chose the paper, the words, even the pen. You reread it before sending. And when you got one, you didn't skim. You sat down, opened it carefully, and read every word. It was a slower kind of communication, but deeper. Some letters are still in drawers 50 years later. Can you imagine saving a text like that? 9. School without the internet or Google Docs. If you needed information, you went to the library. You flipped through card catalogs, read encyclopedias, wrote notes by hand. You learned how to research, not by searching but by digging. You had to understand things, not just copy and paste. Essays took hours. Mistakes were erased with a rubber eraser, not a keyboard shortcut. It taught persistence. 10. Fixing things instead of replacing them. If the toaster broke, you tried to fix it. If your shoes wore out, you went to the cobbler. There was pride in mending, in repairing. Things weren't disposable. You didn't upgrade, you made it last. That kind of thinking stuck with people for life. Even today, many still keep that mindset because it worked. 11. TV signed off at night, literally. After midnight, the station played the national anthem, then went black. Number 24-hour shows, no late-night binging. If you were up late, you either read, listened to the radio, or stared at the test pattern. It created natural boundaries. There was an off switch to the day, and that was okay. Rest was part of the rhythm. 12. Cars without seatbelts and what that meant. Truth is, lots of cars didn't have seatbelts. Or if they did, no one wore them. It wasn't safer. It was just normal. You slid around in the back seat. Kids rode in laps. Looking back, it's wild. But at the time, we just didn't think about it. That doesn't mean it was better, just different. Safety has come a long way, but the memories of those road trips, they're still precious. Third, home cooking, for better or worse. Not everyone had a grandma who made perfect pies. A lot of food came from cans or Jell-O molds. And yes, some dinners were downright strange. But people sat down and ate together. Families had routines. Pork chops on Wednesday, spaghetti on Friday. Even if it wasn't gourmet, it was ours. And that made it feel like home. 14. When malls were the place to be. The mall was more than a shopping center. It was the social scene. Teens hung out, couples went on first dates, families spent Saturdays browsing stores. You didn't just go shopping, you met people. You had a reason to leave the house. And every mall had that one store with music, lava lamps, or weird blacklight posters. It was strange and wonderful. 15. Radio was king. Before Spotify, before CDs, the radio was your soundtrack. DJs had personality. You called in requests. You waited for your favorite song, finger on the record button, hoping no one talked over it. It was imperfect but thrilling. And when a hit song played while driving, the whole car sang. It felt alive because it was shared. 16. Going to the bank meant talking to a human. No online transfers. You stood in line. You talked to a teller. They knew your name. It was slow, sometimes inconvenient, but personal. There was trust, not just in the system but in people. And if there was a mistake, you solved it face to face, not through a chatbot. 17. Movies were an event, not a scroll. You checked the paper, planned with friends, and bought a ticket. Popcorn, a big screen, the crowd's laughter. It was a moment. You didn't pause it. You didn't scroll past it. You watched start to finish in the dark together. That's how stories were shared, in public, not alone. No one checked in, you were just there. You didn't post that you were at the diner. You just were. You showed up, sat down, ordered your usual. Maybe someone saw you, maybe they didn't. That privacy wasn't lonely, it was peaceful. You didn't feel pressure to perform, to share, to be seen. You were allowed to just live. 19. Teen freedom meant bikes, not apps. Your bike was freedom. No helmet, no GPS tracker, just a Schwinn in the wind. You didn't text your mom where you were. You came home when the streetlights came on. That trust, that space let kids grow. They figured things out. They got lost and found their way. And they remember it even now with a grin. 20. Life was slower, and that wasn't bad. We waited. For mail, for answers, for people. There was time to think. To be bored. To rest. That slowness wasn't weakness. It was breathing room. And in that space we made memories. We had conversations. We built lives, not profiles. That world may be gone, but what we learned in it, patience, presence, care, is still worth remembering. 21. Stores closed early, and that was normal. Most shops closed by 6 p.m. On Sundays, everything was shut down, even the grocery store. If you forgot milk, you waited till Monday. Nobody expected things to be open 24/7. You planned ahead. There was a rhythm to the week. A pause. People spent evenings at home, not in checkout lines. And somehow it felt calmer. You made do. That wasn't a problem, it was just life. 22. Kids played outside without constant supervision. You went out after breakfast and came back when the streetlights came on. No GPS. No phones. Parents trusted you to figure it out. You played ball in the street, built forts, rode bikes miles away. You settled arguments yourselves. Got scraped knees, made up stories, learned to handle boredom. It wasn't about safety stats. It was about freedom. And that freedom shaped you in ways today's kids may never understand. 23. Church, clubs, and community centers meant something. Sundays weren't just about faith. They were about people. Church potlucks, pancake breakfasts, charity drives. Even if you weren't religious, the local Elks Lodge, PTA, or VFW gave folks a place to connect. It wasn't about status. It was about belonging. You knew people's names. You showed up. That social fabric made neighborhoods stronger and gave folks a sense that someone had their back. 24. The Sears catalog was our Amazon. If you wanted something special, a toy, a tool, a coat, you flipped through the Sears or Montgomery Ward catalog. You circled items, dog-eared pages. You mailed in an order form, then waited weeks. That wait built excitement. And when the box finally came, it felt like Christmas. No next day shipping, just good old-fashioned anticipation. And for a lot of families, that catalog wasn't just shopping, it was dreaming. 25. News came once a day, and that was enough. The evening news came on at 6 or 6:30. You watched with dinner or right after. That was it. No push alerts, no non-stop updates. Just a few anchors you trusted. They told you what mattered, not every rumor, not every drama. And the rest of your day was yours. Kept your head clear. You could go outside, read a book, talk to people without being buried in noise. The internet changed everything, but it didn't erase the world that came before. We lived it. We remember what it felt like to go slow, to be present, to find joy in the little things. And sometimes looking back isn't just nostalgia. It's a reminder of how full life can be when we're truly in it.